I feel like most people don't spend this much time on their inking work because you have to be nuts. This is the kind of stuff I feel like you don't see in comics anymore, because I feel like it takes so much work to kind of think about something like that. We have another issue of Heavy Metal on the channel, and I picked this particular one, because the cover is done by the great Kaza. And unfortunately, there's no Kaza inside, but that's okay. We have some on the front. And I don't know who the artist on the back is, but I'm sure it will tell me once I open up the book. Heavy Metal is always strong. There's always great stories in here. I'm sure we're going to see Mobius. I'm sure we're going to see Juillet. I'm sure we're going to see the usual suspects in issues of Heavy Metal. And man, Heavy Metal is such a great comic book or magazine because you get Corben, you get Juillet, you get Kaza on the front. So many great artists, so we're just going to take a look at it. And we start out strong with a Mobius piece here. And then some Corben. So, I'm not sure what issue this is, but I'm assuming this is well after Den. Or maybe he took a break from Den, or took a break from putting Den in Heavy Metal, I'm not sure. But it's nice to see kind of some different Corben that isn't Den. And it's just as striking as the other stuff that you see by Corben. Beautiful colors as usual. Great detail. Such a unique style. Just, man, I love the purples and the oranges and the blues. I mean, the color just pops whenever you're looking at Corben. One of my favorite artists of all time. I'd be shocked if the guy did anything that I wasn't visually interested in. Story-wise, it's a bit iffy with his stories, but the art, amazing stuff. Really beautiful stuff. I mean, look at that. That beautiful, like, monster with the foreshortening and the just giant claw. I mean, it just looks so cool. He's doing so many just beautiful things and really kind of pushing the medium of comics as far as you possibly can. Even the lettering is pretty sweet with stuff like that. Not a big fan of this, like, box shit. It kind of looks cheap to me. But, you know, it is what it is. And then we have some more beautiful art here. I mean, there was a time where Heavy Metal just had the best artists. And it's so great to kind of have something that isn't your typical American superhero comics that you kind of get in the States. It's just, I feel like there was a time where it's just like superheroes, and then you have this beautiful stuff. And I don't know if it was because maybe comics were still geared towards children, or there wasn't a collector aspect to it at the time, or there was a collector aspect at the time, and, you know, they kind of felt like, oh, why would I get issues of Heavy Metal over, you know, issues of Spider-Man? I'm not sure the reason, but beautiful art. Yeah, look at that. It's really funny too, because it's like if you read like Image comics and stuff like that, you see so much, like, all those Image guys and gals are very inspired by this European style. Man, look at that. Look at the coats and the drapery. So much line work going down. I love how it follows the form beautifully, and it just makes everything look so three-dimensional and beautiful. And I love how it kind of has like this, you know, if you look at this story here, the paint, like the color has a very, I don't know, it's just, it feels like they colored comics very differently as opposed to kind of like your typical Marvel comic. I don't know what's being used here. It's just, wow. Really beautiful stuff. Great action here. Great figure drawing here. A very unique, or a very dynamic gesture there, and beautiful action. Just, man, just really wonderful stuff. And that's the other thing about heavy metal. It's always very experimental. I know, like, psychedelic is like one of those things that people kind of talk about, how it's more of like a psychedelic, you know, art style with a lot of these artists on heavy metal, but I think it's experimental is the better term to use. Man, love that artwork, love that figure drawing, and everything is so, you know, unique. Everything is different. You're not going to see the same style. I mean, they're not like trying to be one another or trying to copy. There's no house style. It's just, hey man, make this interesting story, do this beautiful artwork, and we'll print it for you. The beautiful days of comics. It is a real treat to be able to look at old issues of heavy metal. And then, yeah, look at that. I think that's a Juliet, maybe? I could be wrong, though. And look at that. Wow. I still have my, so you could get a 1 year, 12 issues. This is back when heavy metal was doing 12 issues. I think they ended up going down to 6 issues. But you could get 12 issues for 18 bucks. Not bad. I just actually backed the oh, and then you deduct $8, so you pay $10, I guess, if you get it for a year. I just backed the heavy metal Kickstarter, or the Metal Hurlant Kickstarter, and for 6 issues it's like 200 bucks, or no, like 150 bucks. So the glory days are over where you could get these for $10 for a year. Those days are over. Now you're going to be paying quite a lot more money than that these days, which is quite sad. But hey, I am very happy to see that heavy metal is making somewhat of a comeback. I know that they're doing also heavy metal and Metal Hurlant. So I don't know what the deal with that is. I think Metal Hurlant is reprinting stuff, but also adding new stuff, and then heavy metal is just doing new stuff. And I don't know if they're owned by the same person. I think is it Titan who's doing it? No, it's Humanoid who's doing Metal Hurlant. And then I don't know who's doing heavy metal, so. But anyways, it doesn't matter. We're looking at some Juliet here. I mean, wow. Look at the amount of detail we see there. Just a guy who probably spent hundreds of hours on something like this. It is... wow. The amount of hatching, amount of cross contours, I mean, the ink work, and then the color work. That is dedication for sure. Beauty for sure. I don't know what pace he was working at or what was going on with that, but man, just great stuff. We got an interesting story here. I'm not a fan of the lettering kind of taking up a large portion. I don't know if it's kind of like a visual novel kind of thing or whatever, but yeah, it's not bad. So we have Juliet back again doing more work, and we're just getting the ink here, and my goodness, wow. Even the sky he's hatching out. Could have just used a solid color, but he's like, nah, I'm gonna hatch on the sky, and I'm gonna go around it, and he's kind of going around it that way and around it and going down. Just beautiful work. The thing about Juliet is, if you want to learn inking, when you get into that level of inking, him and Wrightson, I think, are just the best people to look at when it comes to understanding how inking works. obviously you have to understand how inking works first, but it sort of kind of like solidifies all that stuff that you need to know. And they kind of, the idea of what they're doing becomes more obvious once you understand a bit of inking, and then it just kind of brings you over that level where you can kind of become a master if you just like look at their work a lot. It's kind of like if you look at Frazetta and you're trying to learn figure drawing, and then you get kind of base knowledge of figure drawing, and then you really study Frazetta and study everything that you've learned and put it together, and you're like, oh, okay, I understand a lot more. Kind of, I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just like they're so damn good at what they do that if you have surface knowledge and look at their stuff, it's going to make you a better inker. There's no question about it. So, beautiful work. I mean, the amount of time and effort. I feel like most people don't spend this much time on their inking work because you have to be nuts to spend this much time on your ink work. I don't know what size he's working at either. It might be 11 by 17. He might be working bigger than that. But it's kind of like he uses kind of solid color or solid black very sparsely and leaves sort of the line to do a lot of the work. And then when you get that solid color or that solid black, then it really pops. I mean, wow. Beautiful perspective going on there. Beautiful composition. Kind of showing him going up, and then you're kind of looking down at him going up. This is the kind of stuff I feel like you don't see in comics anymore, because I feel like it takes so much work to kind of think about something like that, to think of how you can make, you know, this piece more dynamic. I feel like, you know, if you would get something like this on one page, that would be tremendous. But to get both of these views is beautiful. The other thing that I will say is, when I look at like a comic book or a manga, like Berserk, you know, he had to have been, is it Miura? I think, the creator of Berserk. He had to have been into Juye. There's no doubt about it, because I see a lot of Juye in his work. Oh, we get a very, very beautiful comic and story by Julie. And then we get some shitty Barbarella. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. You know, I feel like they did like movie stuff for a while. Heavy Metal did. I don't know who the artist on there. The art's actually pretty great. I don't know who the artist is on this, but I feel like it's a little dated for the time. I feel like if you saw this in the 60s, it would have been amazing, but in the 70s, I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, past its prime. And then we get this very, very Daniel Klaus-like work. Very interesting stuff. Kind of, yeah, Hernandez Bros. And then, of course, you can buy a t-shirt, which I'm sad that you can't buy a Heavy Metal t-shirt for $6 anymore. And this was back when large was like, you're anything over a large, you know. Anyways, and then we have this beautiful back cover here. So cool going through these heavy metal issues. I'm a huge fan of heavy metal. I have loads of back issues of heavy metal that I want to go through. It's just great to look at this stuff, especially if you're an artist or even just a fan of comics. It's some inspiring stuff, you know. It's storytelling at its finest, I think, through visual storytelling. Some of the stories that you see are pretty good visually and story-wise, but you're kind of coming to heavy metal for that beautiful visual stuff. And it really saddens me that heavy metal is kind of not, you know, I don't know, like, I feel like when you're starting to read comics, you, especially in the States, like, heavy metal is... I had to start drawing for me to kind of figure out about heavy metal, so... I think it's slowly getting its due, heavy metal is, but it's gonna come around eventually. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy that I can go through these with you and kind of take a look at them. And the great thing about Heavy Metal Comics is, or Heavy Metal Magazine, is you can actually find these pretty affordable. They're pretty affordable. So if you want to pick up a copy, I'm sure you can probably find one on eBay. Like, they sold enough for them to kind of be around and for them to kind of be sold at a high quantity, because I find these all the time. They're expensive, some of them. They're like 10 bucks, 15 bucks an issue. They're probably about like what they charge for Heavy Metal Comics now, or did. But I mean, I don't know. It's worth it when you get all this great artwork. I mean, come on.